All right. Welcome everyone to our Monday night Q&A. I am actually really excited for tonight because we have an amazing topic that we're going to talk about, which
All
is
right.
welcome everyone.
I always do that. Sorry.
So we have our YouTube channel on one of our tabs so that we are aware of who's asking questions. So that's where that's coming from. So sorry about that. But anyway, like I was saying, we are super excited to talk about some stuff tonight with you guys because it's a simple topic, but a lot of people have questions about it. Like our students, even if you are not a host on Airbnb and you're a traveler, this also can pertain to you and help you out a lot. So before we get into it, I just want to say welcome to our students who are here watching. We just want to make sure that we extend the invite that if you have a question not pertaining to this, please ask in our chat box and me and Tina will make sure that we get to it by the end of the session. So definitely ask your questions. If you have a question about anything we're talking about, feel free to ask, interact with us, and we will do our best to get to it. All right, so what topic are we talking about today, Taina?
So the cancellation policy. Um, it's like Rosa said, it's pretty, simple and straight to the point, but a cancellation policy, making sure that your cancellation policy is the way that you want it, is so important. So we're just gonna go over some of the cancellation policies that Airbnb offers, and just give a little bit of insight how it, could which cancellation policy, I guess, is best for who, meaning a host or a guest. So let's get into it.
Yeah.
Um, there are a couple. I'll just read off the list and then we can go down the line one by one and just read off, what they mean, what they mean in Airbnb.
Do you
Um,
want me to like show and share my screen? Or
sure.
okay,
Yeah.
do that. All right. So something too I also want to point out is that Airbnb's cancellation policies are kind of once you get really like there's really only like two cancellation policies. Most of them are pretty much the same. They're just in like really confusing wording. And like we just want to unconfuse you guys and kind of read through them and so that we can kind of summarize it for you and help you find the best cancellation policy for you. So yeah, let's get into it. Let me share my screen here. Um all right, let me do this and this. Okay, here we go. All right. All right, so here is my screen. And here are some cancellation policies that I will just read off. Tyne, did you want to read them or did you want me to?
Doesn't matter.
Okay, so let's start with the first one, flexible. And we'll talk about each one as we go along, just so that you guys are kind of caught up. So flexible. Flexible is best for a traveler. Everyone wants a flexible cancellation policy, which essentially means that guests can cancel within 24 hours of the check-in and receive a full refund. So it really doesn't matter why you cancel or for what reason. It could just be you couldn't pay. It could be anything. And if it's done at least 24 hours before check-in, this guest will get a full refund. So for guests, this is a great policy, but for hosts, this is just
There's no like reassurance.
yeah.
So yeah, like the ideal policy that a guest would want is a flexible cancellation policy. But the reality of it is for a host on the other side of things, there's no reassurance that we the guest will do what they say they're going to do, and our money also isn't guaranteed because anything could happen, and it's really anything could happen before the day before check-in, and that all that money is gone. All the money is gone. So,
This flexible, I mean, flexible policies, I mean, it's really up to you, right? We're not telling you what to do. You can do a flexible policy. Airbnb said like wants you to, because obviously they're aiming towards more of like a guest experience rather than a host. But like China said, there's no reassurance, there's no guarantee that you're gonna get that money, especially if people are allowed to cancel within 24 hours. So for instance, if someone has booked your place for a month and a half and 24 hours before that big reservation comes and say they've been booked for 3 months. So your calendar's been blocked off for 3 months for this guest and you're counting on this reservation and then they cancel on you the day before they check in. There's nothing that you, at that point, your calendar's been blocked off for 3 months. It's going to be really hard to recuperate that money or get the same type of reservation. And this cancellation policy is just something we don't suggest just because for as a host, um, it's kind of an up in the air kind of policy.
mm-hmm. Are these the only three that they show on the website?
No,
Or
there's
do you know the
more.
rest of them? So
There's
let's just name them off. Like just go down the list and
okay.
just name them off, and then we can go through each one and read what
Okay. All right. So there's flexible, there's moderate, there is a firm cancellation policy, and there's strict. Now, Airbnb, those have been Airbnb's top four cancellation policies. They've just recently added these last couple ones. So after strict goes strict long term, flexible long term, non-refundable option, super strict 30 days, super strict 60 days. And then I believe that is it. So there's a lot of words in there. So we're gonna unconfuse you and give you a good cancellation policy that will kind of put everything in one. Okay, so we've gone over flexible. So let's explain moderate. So moderate reads, guests can cancel until 5 days before check-in for a full refund, and you won't be paid if they cancel after that. So basically, this guest can, instead of 24 hours before check-in, they can cancel within 5 days of check-in and they'll receive a full refund. So it's not a flexible, but it's not a strict. So it's in the middle. I also don't like this cancellation policy. Taina, do you like this cancellation?
No, because the other thing is if they cancel after they check in, then you'll be paid for the nights that they stay plus an additional night. And then it says 50% of the total reservation. So not the full reservation, but just half of whatever nights that they didn't cancel. But that only applies to, I believe, 30 days because after 30 day Airbnb only collects 30 days, the 30-day amount from a guest. They don't collect more than 30 days.
Correct. Correct.
So yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah, super weird. So wouldn't suggest flexible, wouldn't suggest moderate. Now we're going to get into the cancellation policies as hosts that we do suggest. So firm is what we have as a family, right? Taina, me, my dad, we've all kind of incorporated this cancellation policy in our Airbnbs because it makes the most sense. So I'll just read it. So firm, to receive a full refund, guests must cancel at least 30 days before check-in. So the guest gets a month before their check-in date to be like, oh, for some reason something came up, I can't make it. And that's great. That gives you a lot of time to recuperate a reservation if something were to happen. If they cancel within 7 and 30 days before check-in, you'll be paid 50% for all nights. If they cancel less than 7 days before check-in, you'll be paid 100% for all nights. Guests can also receive a full refund if they cancel within 48 hours of booking if a cancellation occurs at least 14 days before check-in. So what that says basically is that, again, guests must cancel within 30 days to get a full refund. If they cancel less than 30 days, so if they cancel, trying to make this simple. So if they cancel within that 30 days, they'll get 50% refund. If they cancel 7 days before check-in, they don't get a refund at all. So it still would give you time to recuperate if a big reservation were to cancel within that 30 days. And after 7 days, they don't get anything. So I really like this because it gives you the ability, like I said, to have that insurance, to have that reassurance that you're going to receive some money, and it'll give you time to recuperate. And then this last part also, it gives guests flexibility. Like if someone were to book your home, and then cancel like immediately, it'll refund them if it's within 48 hours. It's like a protection, like if somebody makes a mistake in books, and so you don't have to get involved and not refund them or refund them. So I like this cancellation policy a lot, because like I said, it gives me time to make up for the lost reservation if something were to happen. And it also is a common ground for guests and hosts to kind of to find a comfortable ground for their reservation where at least they're going to get some money back if something were to happen. So
Yeah, to play fair. To play fair.
yeah, exactly. Um, so next is strict. So I'll read this off. To receive a full refund, guests must cancel within 48 hours of booking. So that could mean if they book 6 months out or 14 days out, you have 48 hours to cancel that reservation from the time you booked it. So it's kind of like flights. You know how like on airlines they give you 24 hours to cancel your flight for free. That's kind of what this is. And then the other rules of this is if they cancel within 14 days, or if they cancel 14 days or more days before check-in, but not 48 hours of a booking, you'll receive 50% for all nights. If they cancel between 7 and 14 days before check-in, you'll be paid 50% of all nights. And if they cancel after that, you'll be paid 100% for all nights. So did I kind of summarize that up, China, pretty well?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
Just make sure like we're going over it now. But all of these cancellation policies are available for all hosts as well as all guests to see on the Airbnb site or the Airbnb, whatever Airbnb listing that you are making your reservation for.
yeah,
So make sure that you go through it yourself. And don't take our word for it, like we're showing you, but make sure you are familiar with your business and you know what's going on and the cancellation policies that apply to you. The other thing about this is by default, everybody, all listings automatically go to a flexible cancellation policy. So if you have never gone in and changed your cancellation policy, I would make sure that you go in and see what policy you have on your listing and choose the one that you're comfortable with. If it's a brand new listing, I'm telling you now that it's already unflexible. So if that's not something that you're comfortable with, make sure you go in and check it. The Jim talks about this a lot, the algorithm and a bunch of other people who talk about the way that Airbnb has been changing. The algorithm is a guest experience algorithm, a guest satisfactory algorithm. So it leans more toward the guest. And what is a guest going to be thrilled with seeing? A flexible cancellation policy. So that's why that's in there. You want to make sure that it fits what you need and what you are comfortable with for your business. So
yeah. And I also think like cancellation policies, like you have to think of them. I'm trying to word this correctly. So cancellation policies apply, but I want everyone to understand that if you run into an issue with a guest or like there are underlying things that can override a cancellation policy or that can help you get you're not stuck to a cancellation policy. So I just want everybody to know that. If you run into an issue with a guest, or if you run into something that you need to get Airbnb involved with, you are able to be refunded for guest issues. And then also if a guest tries to take advantage of you, like for some reason they want a refund for how, for this, and they're trying to make a stink about, maybe like a little hair that they found on the floor, your cancellation policy is a whole different story at this point. You can get Airbnb involved, and they'll help you deal with this guest, which has nothing to do with your cancellation policy. I hope I'm wording that right. I know it kind of confusing if you're not really aware of how to navigate cancellation policies as a host, but I feel like a lot of our students kind of get caught up in their cancellation policies, and they're like, oh, well, I have to have this guest here, or okay, well, this guest complained, so, I have to refund them or I don't. So that's a whole nother story that we can get into another night. But cancellation policies are just for protection of the host and the guest. If you're running into a guest issue, that's a kind of a complete different story than a cancellation policy. So does that make sense, Tina? Did I kind of like, was I kind of all over the place there?
No, no, no. I think we get the point. I think
Okay.
everybody gets the point. So
Okay.
yeah, for sure, definitely. And this is not just for Airbnb, right? We're talking about Airbnb right now, but this is for anything like any retail store, any supermarket, any, dealership or whatever the case is. Know what the policies are,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, like, what's fair is fair, right? And that's coming from a host, that's coming from a person who's selling something, to a somebody who's buying, to a customer, whether that's on Airbnb or just in general. The policies are in place so that there doesn't need to be a back and forth. It's
Right.
already said, it's already set, for everybody to see.
Yes.
If you don't make yourself aware, then you'll be caught off guard
Yeah.
by things that you maybe weren't expecting, because you didn't take the time to understand what, a return policy is, or a
Right.
cancellation policy, or a refund policy from whatever store you go to. Whatever, anything that you're buying, you want to know the rules that are set before you do that, right? And that's important for you to be comfortable with the product that you want, and for the person who's offering you the product, the service, the house. Um, they want to be comfortable in allowing you to have that, allowing themselves to give that to you. So just make sure that you're aware in any kind of situation. Just make sure you're aware of what you're what you're going into, so that there doesn't have to be a back and forth. You already know the rules, I guess I would say, quote, and everybody else knows that you both are on the same page. So it just makes life easier for a guest and for the host.
Yeah. So, as far as the policy goes, as far as fair in both perspectives, what would you say would be the best policy for both parties?
Well, so we talked about earlier that by default, Airbnb gives the flexible cancellation policy. And that's because who doesn't love the flexibility to kind of change their mind and not have, repercussions? That's great. For a host, I think I'd be the most comfortable with a strict cancellation policy, just because I know, like, if something is going to happen, the guest knows what they're doing, the guest knows what they're getting into, and if they need to make a change, they'll do it sooner than later because of the kind of policy that is. You
Right.
know, they're not going to draw it out and wait until the very last minute.
Right.
But for kind of a middle ground, um, firm is like the middle area where it's fair, I think, for both sides, where the host feels comfortable and knows that if anything was to come up last minute, like there are exceptions. You don't have to, like Rosa was saying, you don't have to go by the cancellation policy. You can, by all means, provide any kind of refund that you would like to your guests. But
Right.
this is what is automatically in place so that you don't have to come up with it on your own.
Right.
And then for the guests, you kind of have to be more sure that, you're comfortable with this. Or if you're not, you have a that's a good sized window to decide whether or not you want to keep your reservation or not. It was 14 days, right? Before 14 days, if you cancel before 14 days, then you'll receive a full refund. I think that's a good amount of time for you to decide if you're gonna make that trip or not.
Yeah.
So I'd say firm. Again, it's the policy that we use on all of our listings. And it works very smoothly for us. So firm, I think, is the way to play, is the cancellation policy to play fair on
Yeah.
Airbnb.
Yep. And then if you are a new host, kind of how China was explaining that it is default, that the flexible cancellation policy is default. Make sure you're going into your listing and setting that cancellation policy. I don't know if China said that yet. She might have, but make sure that you do that because you definitely don't want to get caught not having a cancellation policy because once it's set and you get bookings, you can always change it, but not for that reservation. So you want to make sure that you have that cancellation policy in place. And it's whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be firm, it doesn't have to be strict. Whatever it is that you want to have in place as a host, is going to be super important for you to put in manually. Um, so yeah, so that's pretty much the rundown on cancellation policies. It's a really, really simple
It's pretty
topic,
straightforward, I
but it
think.
but it's something that it's a top question that we get from our students, which is what's your cancellation, like what do you have on your cancellation policy? We always tell them strict or firm, but some guests like to do, or some hosts like to do flexible. It really just depends on whatever it is that however you would like to run your business. We're just here to give a suggestion.
Yes, yes. Based on not suggestions out of thin air, though, right? Based on the things that have worked for us and continue to work for us. So that's where all of our suggestions are coming from. We do have a question in the chat from Nico. They say, "Hello, ladies. If a guest violates your house rules policy by bringing an extra guest that was not in their initial booking, can a host cancel the rest of their reservation?"
Ooh, good question. That's a great question, and that could lead us down a lot of rabbit holes. But we will stick to the simple answer, which is yes, you could, because technically it well, hmm. That's okay. So if your house, this is why house rules are super important. Because you want to make sure that you list your house rules. So whatever it is that you want as far as guests to follow. So in our house rules, we have no unverified guests. So or is the wording unverified, Tina, or unapproved?
Just extra. If they're not on the reservation, they're not allowed in the property. No extra guests.
Yep, so no extra guests, no extra overnight unpaid guests is I think the wording. No smoking, no drinking, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We have a whole list of rules we give our students. So you want to make sure those are in every listing. If someone brings an extra unverified overnight guest, you can cancel the reservation based on Airbnb's policy. If someone violates your house rules, you can cancel the reservation without penalty. So if you want to take it that far, you can, or if you don't, which sometimes it's not really necessary, sometimes somebody might just have forgotten to add them, you can always just address it and say, hey, I saw that you have an extra person inside of the home. I just want to let you know that it is going to be an extra guest fee of $5 or $10 a night, which is on my listing. And they'll be like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Either they'll be gone tomorrow or I'll add them to the reservation right now. It can be
Mhm.
really as simple as that, Taina. I don't know if you've actually kicked somebody out. Taina, have you ever kicked somebody out for having an extra guest? Or
Um, I I have
I
at some point in time. There was a time that I have done that, but it was more of an extreme circumstance where it was not just one guest, it was a couple guests, and they were there for more than just one night. And that goes back to kind of the way that we do things and why we do private rooms versus entire houses.
Mhm.
Because with our private rooms, other guests who have reservations also know the rules. So if something isn't lining up with the rules that everybody has told me they agree to, somebody's gonna let me know. And I don't have to go, throughout their whole reservation, not knowing what's going on. Somebody else is gonna tell me. So when it's brought to my attention, then like Rosa said, I'll address it to the person before I take action. And if I don't get a satisfactory response, then that's when I'll pick up the phone and let Airbnb know what I'm going to do. Because that is part of their policy. If house rules are broken, then you can cancel a reservation without penalty. So I'll let them know what's happening, so that they have the opportunity to kind of fix the situation for me
Yeah.
before I have to do it myself.
Yeah.
Miko said that's the situation I'm dealing with right now. So if there's just one guest, if there's just one person that has been entering your property that's not on the reservation, I would just send a message to make sure that the other guest is aware of your house rules, and understands that they need to either put them on their reservation or let them know they need to leave. And if neither of those things happen, if you don't get any kind of response, that's when I would take take action, and pick up the phone, call Airbnb, and do what you need to do. I would also let them know that if they can't follow the rules, if one of those two things doesn't happen, meaning if they don't add them to their reservation as a paid extra guest, or if they don't tell them that they need to leave as an extra guest, then you will be canceling their reservation. Throwing those kinds of things in there, like the action or the consequence that will happen if they don't correct the situation, that normally gets people to move their feet a little bit quicker. So we'd suggest doing that, and yeah, see, and go from there.
Yeah. Um, if you're finding out, because I know you're saying that you're finding out now, and I think their active their reservation is current and active. So you can do that. If for some reason you find out that an extra guest was staying after their checkout, or maybe their checkout tomorrow or something like that, you can always request the extra money inside of the resolution center as well. For I think it can be claimed under extra services or something like that. So you can add that guest fee. So if you do charge a guest fee, so if the guest fee is $5 after one guest, you can just charge them however much it is after the reservation is over. If they do not want to pay that extra guest fee, usually Airbnb will pay it for them. So that is something that can also be claimed if for some reason you find out after they're gone, and submit evidence that there was two people. Maybe a cleaner texted you and say, hey, there was two people in here. I saw them check out this morning, something like that. If you submit that in the resolution center, Airbnb will most likely reimburse you. So there's a few options that you can do. A lot of times it doesn't have to be taken to extreme measures of cancellation. The only reason why we would escalate it to that is if, like Tina said, we don't get a satisfactory response or that guest is rude or hostile. But
Causing issues.
yeah, yeah, or if that extra guest is the one is causing a lot of complaints in the house.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So that's the only reason why we would take it to an elevated level. But if, no one's bothering anybody, it's just something that you discovered, a simple conversation, most likely will solve that issue.
Yeah. And the end part of that, or the final part of that, is please remember that you can leave a review. You will be able to leave a review on that guest. So at the end of the reservation, if, things don't go smoothly, make sure that you're very straightforward, very honest when you are leaving the review, because that makes a difference for us as hosts, to know like who's a good guest, what kinds of things we should be aware of when dealing with the guest, for a future host that may decide to host this person. And also it makes a difference for people who don't follow rules. Like they'll understand if they want to continue to use Airbnb and they don't use it the right way, their account is going to be affected negatively. I think that's also a nudge to kind of get people to continue to follow house rules. Who doesn't want a good review? I know nobody wants a bad one. It's just something to think about to kind of ease your mind. But yeah, definitely I would give Airbnb a call, if you're not getting the response, and go from there. Let them know, the consequences that you're moving toward. And they'll be able to kind of assist you and get things moving. And
Yeah.
then from there, you can tell them what you would like to do if you're no longer comfortable hosting. And they will then, take take the side of the host if house rules are found to be broken.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and just a host tip, try and if you don't have to take it to extreme measures, well, first let me say, don't take it to extreme measures right away. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so so make sure you have that conversation with the guest. Just address it first. Just say, hey, like, be very kind, because it's still your business, right? You don't want a bad review as a host. Like I said, it could have just been an honest mistake, or maybe you never know what the situation could be. So just asking that simple question, hey, I got a report that there are two people in your room, like, is, you know, were
And there's
you,
only one guest on your reservation.
yes, and there's only one guest on your reservation. Are you aware that you have to add two guests to the reservation in order for there to be two on property? Something simple as that. And
Mhm.
see what their response is. So don't jump to extreme measures like, hey, you're breaking my house rules. It's not people on your reservation. This is
Yes.
acceptable. Don't jump to that immediately. Figure out, problem solve, and then go from there. So, and that is I feel like that's important because me as a beginner host, I thought,
It's easy.
everyone's out to get me. Everyone is trying to break
Yeah.
my rules, and that's not true. And just like as a business owner in general, you want to move with poise, you want to move with professionalism. So that's how it should be addressed rather than jumping to conclusions. So yeah, just wanted to throw that in there.
Yes. Miko said, I appreciate the information. So I'm glad we could answer that for you. And we hope that everything goes smoothly.
Yes, 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 yes.
That's it for tonight. We hope that all the information that we just went over was helpful. And if there is anything that you would like us to cover next Monday, well, actually, there won't be a session next Monday because next Monday is our challenge.
Yeah.
So, we talk about this often, but our challenge is a great place to get some upper level tips for hosting an Airbnb. And just hear some things that you may not have heard before. I would suggest that if you hadn't been on a challenge with Jim, I'm telling you, you get to spend 4 days with Jim live, and it's not going to do anything else but benefit you. So if you haven't been to a challenge, I'd suggest that you sign up and reserve your seat now. You don't want to miss it. So next Monday, we will not be having a live. We will be on the challenge that starts at 5:30. And we will be back the following Monday. So any topics you want us to cover, we will talk about them in the next live and we'll keep you guys updated. All right. So we'll put a link in the comments section when this video is over, and we will see you all then.
All right, guys. We'll see you then. Have a great night.
Good night. God bless you all.